Today I want to tell you about definition theories of learning. Theories of learning is some different way people learn by focusing on internal and external influence that affect the learning process. So it depends on personality and learning type of each person. That each person have a different way to understanding or learning something new. A respectable subject of scientific inquiry in the early 20th century, we can identify five main stages of the development of language. The first one is behaviorism. This is the first theory of learning by Pavlov in Soviet Union and Skinner in the United States. In this theory said that learning is the connection process of habit formation that given value by quality of the frequent action of continuous stimulus response. This theory has the large impact in learning psychology and in language teaching. This theory provided the theoretical to support the use of audiolingual methods of the 1950s and 1960s. This method is very good because it's concluding a set of guiding methodological principles which is based on the behaviorist stimulus response concept and secondly on as assumption that second language learning should reflect and imitate the process of mother tongue language. The processes are 1. Never translate. 2. New language should always deal with these processes, such like hearing, speaking, reading, and writing. 3. Frequent repetition is essential to effective learning. 4. All errors must be immediately corrected. The basic exercise technique of this method is pattern practice in which the language that being used in is in the form of language laboratory drills. Second is mentalism, thinking as rule-governed activity. From the audiolingual method, there was considerable empirical evidence among a language teacher because the method was not delivering the good result. The reason why they argue that because in the language learning process, the learner still translating things. As for rule of grammar, found repeating things and sometimes fail to learn something even though they already learned the thing so many times. There was the time when Chomsky could success in the behaviorist theory, but because there was concept of generalization in behaviorist theory that he could not explain that, so he dismissed this concept. His conclusion of the theory was thinking must be rule governed. A finite, fairly small set of rules enables the mind to deal with the potentially infinite range of experience it may encounter. In the learning language, having thinking as rule governed activity was also to step in learning, which learning not only consists of forming habit, but also acquiring rules where the process in which the experience of somebody is being used by the mind to formulate hypotheses. The hypothesis will be tested and modified by subsequent experience. The mind that is being used not only responds to a stimulus, but in here the individual stimulus is used in order to find the underlying pattern or system in learning language. The knowledge then being used of the system in a situation to predict what is going to happen, what is an appropriate response for it. Third is cognitivism, learner as thinking beings. Okay, in behaviorist theory, the learner pretend to be a passive receiver of information, but in cognitive theory, the learners are being the active processor of information. The learning process and using a rule make the learners to think and use their mental power to understand the rule from the mass data and find the appropriate time or situation to use the application of rule. Therefore, in cognitive theory, learning is a process in which the learner tries to make a sense of data. Learning can also mean that the learner has managed to force some sort meaningful interpretation or pattern on the data. In other words, that we learn by thinking and trying to make sense of what we see, feel, and hear. More recently, the cognitive view of learning has significant impact of ESP through the development of courses to teach reading strategies. The ESP projects have made the student aware to theory reading strategies, so the learner will easy to understand the text in foreign language. Cognitive view is already solved the problem that appear in behaviorist theory because in here the students are the focus of the learning process. But actually, cognitive view is not enough yet because if we want to complete the process, we need an affective view too. Fourth is the affective factors. Learner as emotional beings. People think, but they also have feelings. It is one of paradoxes of human nature that although we are all aware of our feeling and their effect on our action, we invariably seek answers to our problem in rational terms. It is as if we believe that human beings always act in a logical and sensible manner. This attitude affects the way we see learners, more like machines to the program. I have taught them the past tense. They must know it. For example, then people will with likes and dislikes, fears, weaknesses, and prejudice. But learners are people. Even ESP learners are people. They may be learning about machines and systems, but they still learn as a human being. Learning, particularly the learning of a language, is an emotional experience, and the feelings that the learning process evokes will have a crucial bearing on the success or failure of the learning. The importance of the emotional factor is easily seen if we consider in relationship between the cognitive theory tell us that the learners will learn when they actively think about what they are learning. But this cognitive factor presupposes the affective factor of motivation. Before a learner can actively think about something, they must want to think about it. The emotional reaction to the learning experience is the essential foundation for the initiation of the cognitive process. How the learning is perceived by the learner will affect what learning, if any, will take place. We can represent the cognitive or affective interplay in the form of a learning cycle. This can either be a negative or a positive cycle. A good and appropriate course will engender the kind of positive learning cycle represented here. The relationship between the cognitive and emotional aspect of learning is, therefore, one of vital importance to the success or otherwise of a language learning experience. This brings us to a matter which has been one of the most important elements in the development of ESP, motivation. The most influential study of motivation in language learning has been Gardner and Lambert 1972 study of bilingualism in French-speaking Canada. They identify two terms of motivation: instrumental and integrative. Instrumental motivation is the reflection of an external need. The learners are not learning a language because they want to, although this does not imply that they do not want to, but rather because they need to. The need may derive from varying sources: the need to sell things to speaker of the language, the need to pass an examination in the language, the need to read text in the language for work or study. The need may vary, but the important factor is that the motivation is an external one. Integrative motivation, on the other hand, derives from a desire on the part of the learner to be members of the speech community that uses a particular language. It is an internally generated one rather than an externally imposed need. Gardner and Lambert's conclusion was that both forms of motivation are probably present in all learners, but its exercise a varying influence depending on age, experience, and changing occupational or social needs. Motivation, it appears, is a complex and highly individual matter. There can be no simple answer to the question, what motivates my students? Unfortunately, the SP were, while recognizing the need to ask this question, has apparently assumed that there is a simple answer, relevance to target needs. In practice, think has been interpreted as a meaning medical text for the student of medicine, engineering, English for the engineer, and so on. But as we shall see when we deal with needs analysis, there is more to motivation than simple relevance to perceive the needs. For the present, suffice it to say that if you students are not fired with burning enthusiasm by the obvious relevance of their ASC materials, remember that they are people, not machines. The medicine of relevance may still need to be sweetened with the sugar of enjoyment, fun, creativity, and a sense of achievement. ESP, as much as any good teaching, needs to be intrinsically motivating. It should satisfy their needs as learners as well as their needs as potential target users of the language. In other words, they should get satisfaction from the actual experience of learning, not just from the prospect of eventually using what they have learned. The last one is acquisition of learning. Much debate has recently centered on the distinction made by Stephen Krasben, 1981, between learning and acquisition. Learning is seen as a conscious process, while acquisition proceeds unconsciously. We haven't in this section paid much attention to this distinction, using the two terms interchangeably. This reflects our view that for the second language learner, both processes are likely to play a useful part and that Kotti speakers will try to exploit both.
In learning, there is a model of learning that is: first, learning is connecting the new information to the existing information. Second, to maximize the existing knowledge, it needs a planning and strategies. Third, motivation is essential factors in effective teaching and learning process. In carrying out our learning as teachers should be able to motivate the students. How can you motivate the students? First, rousing students' curiosity by presenting the students with interesting pictures. Second, making instruction relevant to students' interests by relating instruction to the students' life. Third, entertaining students, incorporating humor and using games. Fourth, getting students to be involved actively in the lesson. Asking lots of questions, requiring students to solve the problem, having students in group discussion. Next, asking the asking the question and presenting the problems that are at the right level of difficulty. Next, being enthusiastic. And the last one is providing the students with the rewards. The next material will be presented by Fastia Hayuningtyas.
First, let me introduce myself. I am Fastia Hayuningtyas. I will explain to you about definitions of character building. Character building is a process or efforts done to develop, improve, and or to shape characters, dispositions, physiological natures, morals or manners of human beings or people that indicate attitudes and good behaviors. Characters are the nature that is brought by each individual, which everyone has their own characters. The character's understanding of leads to the morals and someone with positive attitude. Characters are the values of human behavior relating to God, oneself, their fellow human, and the nationality manifest in thoughts, attitudes, feelings, words, and deeds based on religious norms, laws, manners, cultures, and customs. Then, I will explain why the values of character building is very important for us. Character is very important in the development of human quality. When the character has the meaning of a fundamental value to affect all the thoughts, actions, and deeds of every human being in social, nation, and state. In this case, the values in the development of the character in questions are as follows: 1. Value of struggles. 2. Value of enthusiasms. 3. Value of communities. 4. Solidarity's value. 5. Value of manners. 6. Value of unity. 7. Families of value. And 8. Value of responsibility. These values, when viewed more carefully in current conditions, it appears to be increasingly fading. This looks more obvious. The example of the truth is the increasingly dawn of lace. Among other community, conflicts in the government environment, and others. Conditions that should be maintained and preserved as a form to improve the sense of concern, humanity in the life of the nation and the state must be maintained and preserved. For the factors to note in order to keep the values in the character as follows: 1. Ideology. 2. Politics. 3. Economy. 4. Social culture. 5. Religion. 6. Reputable. 7. Education. 8. Environment. And 9. Leadership. As we discussed, that the character building has an important role in shaping a person's character. In Islamic history, about 150,000 years ago, the Prophet Muhammad (SAW) also confirmed that his main mission in educating humans is to seek the formation of good characters. First, his teaching is honesty, or al-amin, and how to build the good character. So it is also thought that humans should always be able to learn, or ikro, learn from written verses or unwritten verses in Quran Surah Anis and Hambali. From such graduate standards of competence, it can be later developed on more practical values, among others: 1. Faith and belief to God. 2. Appreciating freedom and diversity of religion and belief in God. 3. Tolerance and mutual respect toward one another. 4. Advance the human spirit in brotherhood. 5. The ability of cooperation and love of peace. 6. Advance the life of groups or organizers to establish mutual benefit. 7. Logical, critical, creative, and innovative thinking ability. 8. To fit to develop insights. 9. The ability to inject up and problem solving significantly. 10. the ability to make decisions correctly, whether and wise. 11. Appreciates and develop art and beauty. 12. Developing motivations of achievement and self-confidence. 13. Mandiri has high work ethic, developing entrepreneurial spirit and dare to risk. 14. Disciplined and responsible. 15. Has competition of the fair flow competition. 16. Uphold the unity of the nation. 17. Developing social and altruism sensitivity. 18. Being a gotong royong. 19. Nationality and national dharma awareness. 20. Concerned for the environment. 21. Appreciating, loving culture and developing its own nation products. 22. Honest and love of truth. 23. Appreciate the culture of shame to salt and slaughter and development and anti-corruption attitude. 24. Developing the spirit of democracy, dialogue ethics, and open. 25. The ability to communicate with the oral and written effect. 26. Appreciate and adhere to the norms and laws. 27. Appreciates the rights of minority and gender equality. 28. Participatory in the life of the community and affect public policy. 29. Life and emerging life. 30. Acting effective and efficient. 31. Healthy oriented life is both physically and mentally. The process of characterizing the character will realize or not, it will affect the way the individual views and its environment, and it will be reflected in his everyday. Universities as a higher education institution are one of the important resources. The formal institutions, campus, informal or family, and non-formal or bimbel presentations has the effect and impact on the character of students both deliberately and not. For example, family. The family is the first environment for an individual to grow and develop. From the family of the initial values of the individual character is determined. If parents educate and guide his children well, morals and character of the child will be good. Instead of the character of the child would be bad if morality was not well educated. This fact becomes an entry point to the states that educational institutions such as campus have duties and responsibilities for moral education and character formation. Furthermore, the expert of education, especially the value, moral or character, see it is not just a task and responsibility but also an effort that must be a priority. To sum up, the design of character education should continue to be done with high commitments and continuous improvement efforts. The most dominant thing in the process of character formation is a liver function. Because of the heart, students can differentiate good or bad, and with the heart, also have the power to carry out the good things. Finally, you will know how to design character education. Thank you for your listening. May all those we have shared be beneficial for all of us. Thank you.